I just speak my peace, keep my peace.
What's good, y'all? Welcome to episode 108 of the Speak on Peace podcast. As always, I'm your gracious host, Greg Lacey. Like we always do about this time, I hope this episode reaches you all in good health. Hope that you're taking care of yourself and your loved ones, as we know how important that is today. Before we do get into the thick of this episode, I do want to say thank you again to my two guests from the previous two episodes, Nicole and Cassandra. Last month, coming off of February, really getting back into the thick of things, I really wanted to make sure that I amplify women's voice in Women's History Month. Not just because it was Women's History Month, because their voice should be amplified all year long. But I felt like after coming off of a February where I got very personal and welcomed you all to my life, I wanted to have other people on to share their journeys. And I felt like those two guests during that time, it perfectly aligned with what was going on as far as Women's History Month. So I felt like it was perfect, and them sharing their journeys, so self-discovery and things like that, it was perfect. So again, thank you to them. It's your first time listening to the Speak on Peace podcast, welcome. If it's not, welcome back. Hopefully I'm able to retain and regain your listenership. Thank you for tuning in, whatever medium you decide to tune into the Speak on Peace podcast on. So let's get into it, man. We all know what the hot topic is in media. We all know what all the rest of the podcasts are speaking about. We all know what's on social media. We all know what's on TV. You can't escape it. The hot topic is what happened at the Oscars when Chris Rock said a joke that was not really issued at, but said a joke pertaining Jada Pinkett Smith, and Will Smith's reaction was to go up on stage and slap him during the Oscars. Now, you all know that this podcast is not a tabloidy podcast or a rumor mill type of podcast. I'm not a chatty type of person. I try my best not to involve myself in the lives of other people, whether famous or not, because that's just not who I am. But we can't escape what's going on. I'm not going to do that in this episode. We're not about to get into who's right and who's wrong and different things like that. For one, that main reason is, despite what happened, both of those men are legends to me, and they still remain legends. And that's not going to change. Whatever the issues they have with each other, that's between them. It doesn't affect me. The art that they offered to the world, that they've given to the world, still has the same impact following what happened at the Oscars. And I'm not going to let that dictate how I feel about one or the other. But for this episode, I don't want to get too much into it, but I am going to get into it. The main thing I took away from that was just the aftermath of it. The conversations that happened as a result, the memes that were shared, the fact that it's still a prevalent issue in media. It kind of gave me this idea to cover this term in this podcast called gatekeeping. Now, I have been seeing this term being used on social media, being used in media, being used in conversations, being used on other podcasts and different things like that for the past month. Just kept on seeing it. It just kept being introduced to me. I say introduced, but I don't mean introduced. It wasn't the first time I've seen this word or heard of this word, but it's the first time I've really seen it so frequently. And then the Oscars happened, and then I seen people who didn't look like me weighing in on how they felt about Will Smith or how they felt about Chris Rock and how the incident that happened between them affected them and different things like that. And I felt like it was perfect timing for me to speak about gatekeeping. So for those of you who don't know what gatekeeping is, I'm going to give you all the textbook definition of what gatekeeping is. So gatekeeping is the activity of controlling and usually limiting general access to something. For this specific podcast, for this specific episode, we are going to focus on gatekeeping of Black culture. It may be hip hop culture, but we're not going to use that term. I'm speaking specifically towards Black culture because a lot of time people like to demean the value of Black people. And so you can use a term like hip hop culture and it can be more inclusive. It can mean, yes, Black culture, but also people who are fans of the music that black people listen to. So we're not going to use the hip hop culture. That's a term that's used frequently. Another way that people try to demean the value of black people, they use the term people of color instead of using black people or African Americans or anything pertaining towards us, our culture, because even though that they're addressing the majority of the group that they're addressing are black people, they use people of color to be more inclusive, so that it doesn't seem like we are singling out that we are focusing on those people or that they're insignificant in the grand scheme of things, which is not true. But for the sake of this podcast episode, we are focusing on black culture. If that definition didn't help you, one of the greatest examples, one of the most prominent examples I can give you of gatekeeping is the use of the N-word. Now, you all, if you don't know how I feel about the use of the N-word, you can go back and listen to episode 5. Wow, episode 5. You can go back and listen to episode 5 and find out how I feel about it. I'm not going to get too in depth right now, but for the purposes of giving you all an explanation of gatekeeping, the use of the N-word, who can use it, who can't use it, that is probably the most prominent example I can give you of gatekeeping. To this day, I still have no idea why people who aren't black are so engulfed and so entrenched and want to use this word so bad. It's still like, I'm still confused to this day why. But there are people who want to use this word, who actively use this word, whether it's with the A or with the hard R, but I'm referring to with the A, for whatever reason, who aren't black. And in this instance, the gatekeeping is who we allow, who we address, and who we combat from using that word. Who we tell, you're not, of this culture, you shouldn't be using that word. You didn't grow up this way, you shouldn't be using that word. You're not of this descent, you're not of this ethnicity, you shouldn't be using that word. That is gatekeeping, preventing or limiting access to a term of endearment that was created by us and frequently used by us within our households, internally, whether we're in a group of friends, whatever the case it may be. This is a term that is significant to our people. And so that is probably the most prominent example I can give you all of gatekeeping. So you may ask, what does gatekeeping have to do with one black man walking up on stage slapping another black man? It wasn't the incident particularly, it was the aftermath of it. Following what happened at the Oscars, obviously social media is going to social media. So we've seen the jokes, we've seen the memes, we've seen the videos, the GIFs, whatever the case may be, joking about what's going on. But there was also a serious aftermath of it. There were people who were calling for Will Smith's award to be taken away. There were people who were saying that Chris Rock was in the wrong for telling the joke. There were people who were saying that basically painting Will Smith as a menace. There were people who were coming at Jada Pinkett Smith. It was a lot. It's still to this day, it's a lot of things that came as an aftermath of what happened. And I feel like gatekeeping comes up in this instance is because this is our culture. It's unfortunate that this happened in the public and so many people were invited into our culture because of that. And what I mean by how this is of our culture, we have two prominent black figures. Two people of our culture, two people who come from neighborhoods that a lot of us come from. Chris Rock from Bed-Stuy, Will Smith from West Philly. Those neighborhoods look very, the makeup look very similar. And not even just on the East Coast. It look very similar to some neighborhoods here on the West Coast as well. And so, kind of getting off topic, but how this is pertaining towards black culture is because we have two prominent figures who have done great things, who have had great careers and still to this day still having great careers. Like, there is a reason why those two people were in that place. It wasn't because they're average. It wasn't because somebody paid them to be there. It's because they have been recognized for their accomplishments and they've done so well in their career. And so because of that, this is a thing of black culture, despite it being in the public. The reason why I say it's unfortunate that it's happened in the public because it invited so many people into our culture to have these conversations, to have these think pieces about why Will Smith's Grammy should be taken away or why Will Smith should be taken to jail. There are so many different conversations and so many different things that came out as a result of this, that it invited people into our culture. Not really invited, but allow people to place themselves in our culture. Intruders, invaders, whatever you want to call it. Kind of lost my train of thought while I was speaking about that. But we have folks taking sides, whether it's Will's side, Jada's side, Chris' side, whatever the case it may be. And so now we pitting people against each other. Again, these are conversations that are happening by people who are not of this culture, who don't look like any of the culprits within the situation, but are providing their opinions about these people. The unfortunate reason, or the unfortunate thing about this all and inviting and these people having these conversations is, again, despite whatever happened, those two males are legends. And so when we have conversations about taking awards away from people, not allowing people to do things, shutting down movies, shutting down productions and things like that, that affects us. This is of our culture. If it was of any other culture, I don't think the aftermath will be the same. I don't think the conversations will be the same. But because our culture is so highly coveted, and what I mean by highly coveted, I mean that our culture is copied. Our culture is borrowed from and is stolen from so many times. And I'm going to get into it later in the episode. But because of that, because our culture is so highly coveted, now we're inviting people to our homes to demean what it means to be of this culture. I think gatekeeping is very important in any aspect when you're considering our culture, for those reasons I just listed, about it being stolen, about it being copied, about it being taken from us and different things like that, is because it allows us to preserve our culture. Like, we're not given much and we make the most out of what we are given. And I mean, again, to paraphrase, we're given lemons and oftentimes we make some bomb ass lemonade. And it's amazing what we are given and what we make out of it every single time, because people have more means, people have more resources, people are afforded more from other cultures than we are, and they do less. And so they come and take and borrow from our culture. Think about music. And I got a lot of these written down. I forget the name of the first ever jazz record. I don't know why I don't remember the name. But when I say the first ever jazz record, I mean the first ever jazz record recorded, not the first ever jazz record released. The first ever jazz record released was by a white band in 1917. It was either 1917 or 1916. I think it was 1917. Obviously, thinking about the times, that white band had the means to record a record and release a record and have a record distributed because of the times they were in. That black band that recorded the actual first record didn't have the means to do so, and so they are not recognized as the first official jazz record because they couldn't release it. In this, I'm speaking about gatekeeping, and I'm also speaking about plagiarizing. Moving on down the line, the song Hound by Elvis, one of his biggest hits, is actually not his song. It was a song that was created by Mama Thornton, a blues singer, who it was later copywritten by another group of people who Elvis then eventually stole or copywritten the song from. It goes on to come one of his biggest hits. Moving on down the line, Chuck Berry. Damn near, you can look at Chuck Berry fashion, Chuck Berry's music, Chuck Berry's discography. Damn near Chuck Berry's whole career was plagiarized. You want examples? Go, when you finish, or while you listen to this podcast, go listen to the song Come Together by the Beatles, one of their most recognizable songs, and then go listen to You Can't Catch Me by Chuck Berry. Go listen to the Beach Boys' Surfing USA. And then go listen to Sweet Little 16 by Chuck Berry. Go listen to Elvis, repeat offender, Jailhouse Rock. And then go listen to Johnny Be Good by Chuck Berry. Hell, you can listen to any Rolling Stones song and put on shuffle a Chuck Berry song, and you're probably going to find a match, because damn near their whole discography is a improvisation of Chuck Berry's records. Go listen to the Beatles, repeat offenders. I Saw Her Standing There. And then go listen to I'm Talking to You, or Talking About You. Is it Talking to You or Talking About You? I think it's a Talking About You by Chuck Berry. Liquor. Jack Daniels, one of the most famous whiskeys or bourbons, whatever the hell Jack Daniels is, was actually, should be named Nearest Green, because the distiller, the person who created the recipe for Jack Daniels, was a black man who Jack Daniels' family later on tried to erase the history for 150 years, so that Jack Daniels could be seen as the originator and the creator of this recipe. In every single one of those instances, people have come into our culture and taken from us and didn't credit us as the originators of those things. Gatekeeping is so important because we preserve our identity of who we are as a culture. We are the most copied, we are the most marketed, we are the most improvised culture in the entire world. I said I was going to separate black culture and hip hop culture for the sake of this episode, but let's look into hip hop culture and what it actually means to be hip hop culture. Think about the fashion, how people wear certain things. Hip hop culture, that's copied all over the world. Think about sneakers, basketball sneakers. Before basketball sneakers came around, before black people actually started rocking basketball sneakers, people were walking around wearing loafers. We implemented that change to where you're wearing gym sneakers outside now. Now you're styling your gym sneakers with your suits, with your sweatsuits and with your pants and different things like that. We implemented that. Think about diction. Think about how we say words. Think about the words we speak. Think about our slang. Like the African American vernacular, as far as English goes, is the most copied I've ever seen. I've met Latinx people who speak with the same diction as me, just like I've met Middle Eastern people who speak with the same diction as me, just like I've met Asian people who speak with the same diction as me, just like I've met white people who speak with the same diction as me. You won't find that from any other culture. You're not going to find too many other cultures copied like that. Think about sports. The leader in sports. In most sports, most people's favorite athletes are black. You take away black people from all the major sports, maybe excluding soccer, but not even excluding soccer, because there are a lot of legends within soccer, but you can't take black people away from soccer and you're going to still have some great athletes, because there's a lot of great European athletes as well. But just in general, look at all the sports. You take away black people from all the sports, the viewership is going to go down. The effect it has on the globe is going to go down. The impact it has on other cultures is going to go down, because we make it look cool. Think of Allen Iverson. Allen Iverson walking into an NBA arena with big chain, big suits, hair braided, walking to an arena. He had people all across the world copying that. He had white kids getting cornrows in their hair. Cornrows. A couple years ago, these white people tried to act like they invented cornrows because some white models decided to brandish cornrows as they were walking down fashion runways. And so they tried to make it seem like this was the first implementation of hair being styled this way, when we know that that's not true. We know who made these things popular. Our culture, what we have to offer for the world, I don't know what the value is on it, because it hasn't been valued, but it's probably the most valuable thing. most valuable intangible thing ever, because of the effect that we have on it, because of how many times it's duplicated, because how many times there are reiterations of what we have to offer. And so when I think about the word gatekeeping, and I think about the importance of preserving our identity, we have to understand that there are people who see what we're doing, acknowledge what we're doing, admire what we're doing, and are astonished by what we are doing, and try to find, a nook and a cranny to where they can insert themselves in that culture so that they can take from us and not credit us for it. So gatekeeping is important, because if we don't preserve those things, if we are not credited for what we have to offer, in which I love the time that we are in now, to where the talks around ownership is happening more now than it ever has in the past. But the more we preserve our identities, the more we take ownership in what we have to offer, the better off we are, because we are slowing down the frequency in which these things are happening. I mean, a lot of my listeners are from the same country I'm from. Think about the country that we're living in. Like, this country was stolen. This is not pertaining towards black culture, but towards another culture. This country was stolen from the people who originally inhabited this land. And the people who stole it tried to erase them from history so that they can't tell their stories about how this land was in the beginning, or who the originators were, who were the natives to this land. They failed in doing so, but they damn sure attempted to do so. That's culture vultures. Those are culture vultures. We call these people culture vultures. They hover around what's happening and what's going on from the outside. And when they see something that's appetizing, they drop in and take, and they dip off. Y'all may think, okay, well, what does all this have to do with Chris Rock and Will Smith? What it has to do with Chris Rock and Will Smith, again, these are legends of our culture. These people have offered so much. Their careers have impacted all of us so greatly that we can't allow these people who are not of our culture, who don't care about these two men in the first place, to dictate how their careers end. If you want to take a side, take a side, but we have to continue to champion ourselves. Will Smith, it's unfortunate that his marriage has been public because of the things that he and his wife has allowed to come out to the public. But that is still a visual representation of black love. No matter if you think that their relationship goals or not, that is a black couple who has raised a family, who has raised a mixed family, because Will Smith had a child from a previous marriage, and continue to exemplify excellence. One of the greatest actors ever, one of the greatest actresses ever. They raised a musician for a daughter, a great musician for a daughter. I believe Will Smith's oldest son is a DJ, and I believe like a director. They raised Jaden Smith, where I can't even list off what Jaden Smith was doing, because he's doing so many different things at a young age and offering so much to the world. This is an example of black excellence. This is an example of black love, and this is a representation that we all need to see. No matter if you agree what they're doing in their relationship or not, what they're offering and what they're showing that they are imperfect, showing that they are working through things, showing that this is a family that are sticking together. That is a representation that we need. And we can't allow people who don't give a damn about that to dictate how they are viewed in the world. I think what we get caught up in a lot of times is that, the jokes are funny on social media and the think pieces and all this other type of things. We get so entrenched and so engulfed in the personal lives of celebrities that we forget they are human too. They make mistakes. And that's what happened here. I'm pretty sure it was just a mistake. Spur of the moment, heat of the moment type of thing. We are lucky enough to live our lives in private and not have to be judged for every single thing we do. But they don't have that luxury. They are famous. And so, yes, people are going to provide opinions. People are going to do these think pieces. People are going to share their memes, whatever the case may be, because their entire lives are played out on the big screen. But when all that's said and done, all that they have done is greater than the lives that we share for a millisecond. And we have to remember that. We are the gatekeepers of our culture. We have to dictate what conversations we allow around us. We have to dictate what conversations we get involved in. And we have to dictate what we make seem okay. What I mean by that is I dreaded, the Oscars happened on Sunday. I dreaded logging on to work on Monday because I had to deal with a bunch of white people who may be joking about what happened. And that happened. Like, there are people sharing gifts. There are people talking about it. Whatever the case may be, I removed myself from every single one of those conversations. Because for one, they are looking for the black person to laugh with them, to let them know that, oh, it's okay to continue with this. We can carry on because a black person is laughing with it. I didn't allow myself to do that. I removed myself from every single conversation because I was not okay with it. For one, I didn't care about it. I still don't care about it. I was telling people, black friends, that, you know, they could continue to share memes and continue to share jokes and articles with me. I'm like, I didn't care about it when it happened. I don't care about it today. So, like, I don't know what kind of conversation you're looking for from me, but I'm just not I'm not going to get involved in that type of conversation because I just don't care. And so I have that same mind state with people who are not of our culture, because as soon as I get involved, they're going to think that it's okay to do so. Thinking about gatekeeping, the black woman is the most undervalued and the most disrespected woman in the entire world. My generation, we don't do the greatest in protecting them and preserving them. We have these idiots that are on Twitter sharing their opinions on black women and devaluing and demeaning black women. And so now we have other people who are not of our culture seeing that, okay, if their own people are doing it, then let us get in and do it as well. That's why gatekeeping is important. If you feel that way about how you feel, that's on you. I disagree with it, but we shouldn't be sharing these things in public, allowing people to think that it's okay to do so. And so in closing, all I want to say is be strong, be militant, be vigilant in what you allow people who are not of our culture to do and say. Be mindful of the conversations that you are engaged in. Be mindful of how the route that you allow those conversations to engage in. Be mindful of the route that you allow those conversations to go. And be mindful of the intentions of people who are engaging in them. Now, every single person who is not of our culture is a culture vulture. Some people are genuinely fans of what we have to offer, and they're so intrigued by our culture that they just want to show that they're fans. There are people like that are out there, but there are also people out there who don't give a damn, and they look for any type of entrance to undermine or undervalue that, and we can't allow that. That's all I have for the Speak on Peace podcast this week, y'all. Before we get out of here, thinking about gatekeeping and plagiarizing, my what to watch for this week, we're going to go with The Lion's Share on Netflix. Once again, my what to watch for this week is The Lion's Share on Netflix. That's the Speak on Peace podcast for this week. I'm out.